You're listening to Bring Me the Axe. I'm Brian White, one half of this morbid equation, and I'm joined by my co-host and actual brother, Dave White. Dave, how you doing?
Well, I'm all right. I just accidentally opened a bottle of wine, and I did not want wine. I didn't think it was going to be wine, and that's where I find myself.
Yeah, there's not much of a drinker these days, as you know, but there's nothing worse than surprise wine because I don't get it. I never got the appeal of wine.
Surprise wine, toilet wine.
It's all toilet wine to me.
That's right. It's all toilet wine from here on out.
Yeah. Hey, so what are we doing here on a Friday? We don't release on Fridays.
It is a very special Friday. On this very special episode of Very Special Friday.
Yep.
I don't know.
Val
Kilmer has a drinking problem.
Yeah,
remember that movie?
No.
Remember that made-for-TV movie where Val Kilmer and Mayor Winningham, and somebody else was in it too. And Val Kilmer was an alcoholic, a teenage alcoholic. And the only reason I remember this movie is because we watched it in health class. And I got kicked out because Val Kilmer gets drunk and accidentally hits someone with his car, and I audibly laughed when it happened. And I'm sure I was being an asshole throughout the entire class, but I just remember that movie because I got kicked out of health class in high school for laughing at what is a very serious problem, I guess.
I know. I've never heard of this thing. I was going to ask if it was on one of Sam Pancake's shows because it kind of sounds like it's it's right up his alley.
I think it was like a mid '80s, early '80s one.
It would have to be because he really found stardom pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Oh God. Yeah. So it is Friday the 13th in October of all things, and you didn't think we're going to sleep on this. Of course, we're going to do a Friday the 13th episode.
Yeah, we're going to be the only fucking horror podcast that doesn't. What kind of jerk do you think I am?
I know. What the fuck?
I'm not that kind of jerk.
No. So we practically grew up in neighborhood video stores, and the steady diet of utter garbage that the shops provided us with continues unabated to this day. There's no one else I enjoy chopping it up with about Friday the 13th more than Dave. And just before we get into it, here's a little housekeeping. If you want to keep up with us between the episodes, you can find us on socials. We're mostly doing it on Instagram these days. And you can find us over there, Bring Me the Axe Horror Podcast, and Dave's That Queer Wolf over there. And we're having a good time. We're doing a whole 31 days horror thing, and rolling out a whole recommendations list. It's been fun. So we've also got a sweet website at bringmetheaxe.com. You can listen to all our past shows there and read the transcripts. You can also contact us directly at bringmetheaxepod@gmail.com with any questions, comments, or suggestions. Do let us know if there's a movie that you love and would like to hear us give it the business. And lastly, if you like what you hear, you can subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. And you'll be doing us a favor by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. And you can also do that on Spotify now. And that actually does go a long way in sort of raising our visibility. Yeah, it takes a second. You can just kind of push a button, 5 stars, do it.
It's all I want in the whole world.
It really is.
Do that.
It just means so much to me. So yeah, just get to it. It's easy. Takes you no time, and it sort of supports us in a meaningful way. So I just want to get that all out of the way right at the top of the show.
Yeah, I got the right beverage now. This is the right one.
Yeah, it's no wine, no surprise wine.
No. This is a Vera May. Is a Farmstead Spring Blossom Ale. Yeah, it's fantastic.
All right. So yeah, here's a taste. He's gonna taste this beer. Mm-hmm. We're going to give you a little taste of what we're watching.
Hello? Who's that? Oh, hi. What are you doing out in this mess?
1, 2, 3.
We weren't doing anything. We were just messing up.
4. 5.
Dave! Oh, Dave!
6.
'Must be my imagination.
help you? Hello?
8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Friday, the 13th. You may only see it once, but that will be enough. Friday, the 13th.
I don't know about you. That's kind of a crappy trailer. I don't think
I
I've
was
ever.
gonna say that is an extremely languid trailer.
I don't think I've ever seen that one before, and it's not very good.
It also says it's a Warner Brothers picture.
That was okay. So it was distributed here in the United States by.
And I got a fun story about that.
Oh yeah, by Paramount, and WB got it in Europe. So that might have been a European trailer, though it purports to be the original theatrical trailer, which it very well might be, because I don't think I've ever actually seen a trailer for the original Friday the 13th before that one.
Well, now you're disappointed.
I am. It just counts.
One more way that Sean Cunningham has disappointed me. How many times do you think you've seen this movie?
A lot.
Yeah, I don't even think I could count. I've probably seen this like a good 30 or 40 times. If not more.
It's not my favorite of the bunch, but it's probably it's easily the one I've seen the most, and it's the one that I go back to most often for whatever reason. I think it's probably
fun.
Yes, I would definitely say that it's the first one. They're figuring it out, and
there's not much to figure it out. They're just ripping everybody else off.
This is definitely true. So yeah, so a warning before we get rolling. We're basically gonna talk about this movie from beginning to end. So spoilers to follow. What the fuck? You've seen this movie. It's Friday the 13th.
Even if you haven't, you know how it ends.
Surprise!
It's the mother.
Yeah, talking about this movie to like horror people is like asking somebody if they've seen Star Wars. Here.
Star Wars.
What's that?
I have seen Star Wars.
Yeah,
I don't like it.
Yeah, so here's
come at me, internet. I don't like Star Wars.
Oh, I went to a school with a girl who had never seen it, and what's more, she had never even heard of it.
That's weird. I think we just had a very similar conversation about this the other day.
But here's the thing. So yeah, this would have been, I was in school, and so the trailer for The Phantom Menace had just come out, and everybody was going fucking crazy for it. And she's like, what is this? What is this that you guys are going nuts for? We're like, this is the new Star Wars thing, And she's like, what's Star Wars? And we are like, and it was like a record scratch moment for everybody because
was she raised in a cult? How do you not know what Star Wars?
Here's the thing: her name was Leia.
She was fucking with you.
No, she wasn't. She was also really fucking stupid. But basically everybody's brain melted and came out their ears. It was a real weird moment.
Like, I get it when people say like, "Oh, I've never seen something," because there's a fucking million movies out there. Of course, there's got to be stuff people haven't seen. But when you've never heard of something,
that's
something that iconic. It's not just like a movie
touchstone.
Yeah, it's a cultural touchstone. It is a property around which there have been fucking theme parks built.
I mean, this was 1999, so like, really before the kind of the sort of situation we're in now. But even then
again,
it had just been in the movie theaters again.
I could throw out, like, you could be having a conversation, like you could have a conversation with your children and say, it's like Citizen Kane, and they'd be like, what?
Yeah.
What do you mean Citizen Kane?
Yeah.
Now, it's fair to say they are young, but even when I was their age, I knew what Citizen Kane was.
Yeah.
So there is I guess a generational difference, but Star Wars is a pretty big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no Citizen Kane land. I wish there was. It'd be really depressing and hilarious.
I was going to say there's no Citizen Kane action figures, but then again, with the way that Reaction puts stuff out, there might be at this point.
At Citizen Kane land, you just throw glasses around and scream at people, which actually sounds like a pretty great theme park.
It's probably out there. It's probably in Japan somewhere.
In a tiny bar in Japan, where all good things are.
In Shinjuku. Yeah, so here we are. The year was 1980. Boy, it was a good year. So here's some other movies released that year. Maniac, which we covered in a very early episode. And you can go back and listen to it, which I recommend you do. It's a good one. Also, Dr. Butcher MD, which is also known as Zombie Holocaust.
I think something like that.
Yeah.
Yes, Zombie Holocaust. Yes.
A movie that I adore. It is something.
It just got a Blu-ray.
Yep, and I intend to own it because it's just that good. Also, New Year's Evil.
Fuck yeah, I love that movie.
Yep, and City of the Living Dead, the Fulci movie, which I love.
I don't love that movie.
I love that one. I like that one more than I like the Beyond.
Is that the New Orleans one?
Yes. No, wait, is it? No. The Beyond is in New Orleans. This is the one that takes place in Salem.
And by Salem, you mean...
somewhere in Georgia. And lastly, City of the Walking Dead came out that year.
That movie is garbage. That is straight up garbage.
That's, Jesus, that's Umberto Lenzi, right?
I believe so.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't care for that one. It doesn't get me. And then zombie makeup is fucking terrible. But yeah, banner year, man. We were starting to slide into the 80s proper. So cast and crew, the director is Sean S. Cunningham, whose career up to this point is real wild. So he first entered the scene.
I would argue his career up to this point is better than his career after this.
So yeah, he first enters the scene directing for the stage around New York. He's done some stuff on Broadway. But he got an idea in the late 60s to make a no-budget porno called The Art of Marriage. It's actually a white coater, which isn't really pornography. It's
like what would you call that, a nudie cutie?
Yeah. That's stuff
proper...
that's really, really soft.
It's the shit that they used to be like, it's an educational movie.
Yeah.
Okay. And I will tell you, this connects to the fun fact I have for you.
Okay.
So keep going.
Okay. He made it on something like $1,000, and he ended up making like $100,000 off of it.
Well, hey, you know what? When you deal with the mob, you're going to come out one of two ways. One of them is really wealthy. The other is dead.
Yeah. So he took some of the money and he basically remade The Art of Marriage with Marilyn Chambers as a movie called Together, and he and he
that
also
is porno proper.
Yes, this is pornography proper. And
this is Together comes out after porn was legal.
Yeah. So at this point, like Beyond the Green Door was a big deal. And so everybody was getting in on it, and you couldn't lose. And so they got Marilyn Chambers, who was a big deal in that one, and it just blossomed. It turned into a whole thing. It made a fucking shit ton of money. But also, he hooked up with Wes Craven on this for the first time.
Who was also making porn at the time.
Well, this was how he got into porn. And so he did this as basically it was like an assistant to Cunningham, and then he started going off and doing his own thing. But a year after that, they get a budget to do Last House on the Left. And that's when...
Which is a gnarly movie, even by today's standards.
It is. I watched it just recently, and while I've never really enjoyed it, I can't say I enjoy it. It's a really, really brutal, very weird movie with a strange sense of humor. But I definitely recommend, or I recognize its importance, because this is the movie that kind of goes on to essentially sets the standard for horror movies in the 70s. Like all of a sudden, drive-in and exploitation horror is like that. It's super grimy and gross and intense.
And I'll say, y'all, if you don't know what Last House on the Left is, or you're not sure whether or not you want to see it, I will sum it up with this anecdote. The scene where they kill Mary, the protagonist of the film, there's a sort of slow shot where he pans across the what is it? There's 3 of them, 4 of them killers.
Yeah.
So he kind of pans across their faces, and they all look really
haunted.
They look haunted. They look horrified, and that is a genuine look because everything in that moment they said felt so real that they were disgusted with themselves. They were disgusted with what they were doing, and so that is the kind of movie you're getting into. It is groundbreaking. It is very important. It is really hard to watch because it looks so real.
Yeah, the thing about it that everybody kind of forgets though is there's that whole police part of the movie that's like it's got Martin Kove in it from The Karate Kid, and they are basically Roscoe P. Coltrane and another guy essentially doing the same thing. And it's like in the middle of this like brutal, nasty movie is all these scenes of like the cops being thwarted and them like throwing their hats on the ground and jumping up and down on them.
David Hess's soundtrack for that movie it suggests nonstop hijinks. It's madcap hilarity. It is like a wacky wild ride. Yeah. And it is so inappropriate for the rest of the film.
It's such a weird movie. I don't get it because it's completely out of step with the rest of it. And I don't know if they're like, maybe we should shoot some funny stuff to kind of lighten things up, or I don't know.
So I'll tell you, here's my 3 degrees of separation from Sean Cunningham and Friday the 13th. So they're doing all this porn, and before porn was legal, and then even when it was legal, in Boston, a lot of it was being booked by this guy, George Mansour, who I think at the time had a company called Hallmark or something like that.
Yes, it's Hallmark.
And so George, I interviewed him like, I don't know, 7 years ago maybe. And because he was very important to Boston's gay scene, because he also booked all of the gay porn, and he was just sort of very plugged in. He started the Boston Gay Film Festival. Like, he was very important in that respect. He ended up getting very wealthy because he was booking a lot of pornography, which you could make shitloads of money. He told me a lot of wild stories about like dealing with the mafia and like how they would pick up movies and all that. But he ended up being the distributor for Friday the 13th, the original distributor. And so when the movie hit and became a fucking huge success, all the studios were like, we want this movie. And there's this huge bidding war. So George, in addition to all of his pornography money, he ends up getting the Friday the 13th money. Now, this man lives I was describing this to someone earlier. This is an apartment. I had no business being in this building. It's on Beacon Street. And it was like everything in his apartment is like gold gilded. And like, it's the kind of place you don't want to touch anything. House. It kind of was. I was like, you don't want to touch anything because you're going to break it. And like the guy at the security desk downstairs is kind of like giving me dirty looks, like, because clearly I do not. But like, this is a very, very fancy building. And here I am looking like I look. And it was just a really wild ride. But so as I'm reading about it, I'm like, why is that name so familiar? And I looked it up and I was like, holy shit, I know that guy. And so that is my fun story about Friday the 13th and how it got distributed by a company that primarily distributed pornography and largely gay pornography.
That's really funny. Also, not terribly surprising because I think that in terms of like film production on the East Coast, it was mostly centered around New York City, and it was probably just impossible in the same way that like when you cast these things or when you found your basically your production crew, everybody was involved in either theatrical productions or they were also doing soaps. Like there was also probably tremendous amounts of money moving around from mafia interests. And so like no matter where you went, you were probably never more than like 2 degrees removed from like hardcore pornography
because that's how you made money. Like nobody made fucking money doing theater or doing these kind of like low budget melodramas. Like
right.
That's why people worked in porn. It's like you had to start somewhere.
Yeah, it was just like also what we did when we did Maniac. That was Lustig's background. Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's no way around it. Like that's it. They are inextricably linked. And
that entire industry was controlled by the mob.
Yeah. And I believe it's kind of the same thing. I mean, it's probably the same everywhere.
It was a little bit different on the West Coast, but they were still kind of, I mean, I only know this because I've written a lot about gay pornography. And it was a little different in the West Coast, but on the East Coast, it was like 100% them. And they were like, sometimes you kind of took your life in your hands.
I would imagine because it was sort of the same situation in Italy
Yeah.
as well, where there is a marked decline in the sort of quality of particularly, well, all the genre exploitation movies, because that's what the mafia was interested in. They don't give a fuck about movies. They want to make money, and the way to make money is to exploit popular trends and sort of spend the least amount of money to make the biggest return. And so when the years of lead end really right around like 1980, or they end properly, you start to see a decline in a lot of producers. Dario Argento is starting to slip. Lucio Fulci's best days are behind him. Umberto Lenzi's not really
Oh
kicking
yeah,
in.
like they were either the icons were either dead or retired, and their proteges were, let's be honest, far less talented.
Yeah. But most importantly, the money just wasn't there anymore.
Yeah.
And so yeah, man.
And that's a primer on Italian film.
There you go. Thank God for the mob. So getting back.
Oh, my other fun fact about Sean Cunningham, the thing that I learned, he is a very tiny man.
I did not notice.
He is 5'5".
That's a short guy.
And I say that as a short person. I'm not that short, but
yeah. Getting back to last House on the Left. This is a movie that really kind of in 1972 really kind of sets the pace for the rest of the 70s, and then Halloween happens, and it really kind of wrests the grimy, nasty affect away from like all of the kind of rape revenge movies,
because that is what John Carpenter does not like.
Right,
gore and violence and sexual violence.
I would let's talk. Well, I'll give him a pass on the gore because it does not too long after this that he does the thing, and whoo boy.
It's kind of comedic gore. It's not comedic. It's over the top. It's very theatrical. It's not realistic.
No, not realistic at all. But anyways, Halloween kind of changes the formula, and also, I mean, but mostly it's just a numbers game. Halloween was made on a very small budget, like something like, was it like a half a million or something like that?
Something like that. It is still, I believe, it's the not the highest grossing. It's one of the most profitable films ever made. It's the most profitable, maybe second now to.
I believe Paranormal Activity is the one that holds
Paranormal Activity and Blair Witch, but I think it's like I don't know, but it's up there. It's that big.
Yeah. So Halloween comes along, essentially shifts the paradigm in a really significant way, and so these guys are all primarily they're like businessmen. And so the idea is, here's a new opportunity. Let's get in on it. We can spend just as much as they did and make just as much, if not more than they did, because Halloween is, like he said, major success, turned out to be way bigger than anybody was expecting it to be. And so they
you can see that in their careers that happen after this. You can tell that they don't really give a shit about movies or film. There's not a lot of there's no auteurs among them. Like, this was all about money. That's why Sean Cunningham puts this movie out, and then maybe directs a couple other things, but for the most part he just kind of rides on the success of this movie because that's all he really cared about.
Yeah, I think.
I don't want to misrepresent him. I'm sure he does care a little bit, but he's not John Carpenter.
I think I kind of get the feeling, because he did continue to direct. He's primarily a producer, but he did direct. I think into the 90s, and he directed but it's all like nothing that you really remember.
No, it's Deep Star 6.
Deep
It's
Star
that
6
horrible
is the
movie,
one that
The New Kids with Lori Loughlin.
Yeah, because right before this, because it wasn't all porn for him. Like, leading up to this, he had like his hand in other sort of scenes. Like, he did I can't remember what it's called now, but he did a Bad News Bears ripoff. Yep. They did another Bad News Bears ripoff that involves, I think, soccer, and then they did this, and it was just like, oh shit, like this is the winning formula.
And this is also the movie that really. This is where we get the idea of the final girl. This thing, as much as Halloween changes the game, this transforms what horror movies are.
Right, because this is that was my next point, is once again, one of his movies sets the pace. Like obviously Wes Craven, directs Last House on the Left, but
and wrote it.
Yeah, also, but I mean, he was the producer on it.
Yeah.
But like, this is another Cunningham thing, because like they go him, and then also Steve Miner, I believe, is editor on this, and like he's the guy who kind of propels Friday the 13th into the 80s. But like, this is the moment when slashers.
Steve Miner takes over after the first one. He directs the second one, right?
Yeah.
And then I think his son ends up directing like I don't know the fifth or sixth one.
Yeah, I think Miner worked with Dad a bunch too, like on like
Yes.
commercials. Because we had his, I remember duplicating like a bunch of his demo reels and stuff. Like that always kind of struck me as weird. I was like, there's no way this is the same guy, and it's like, no, he's a director in New York who also happened to do a little work up this way.
Yeah, they all did though. Like Errol Morris did that too.
Yep.
Who was the other one there? Andrew Laszlo, who shot The Warriors.
Yeah. Yep. Always up here. So cast, we got Adrienne King as Alice, who was a busy actress at the time, who was doing mostly commercials. And she picked this one up off of a Burger King spot, of all things. I think I found that Burger King commercial on YouTube, but it is a really, really poor transfer. And I can't really spot her in it. But it was at a time when Burger King was advertising ham and cheese sandwiches.
Delicious.
I know.
That's like when they had the table service. Do you remember Burger
I
King's
do not
table
remember
service?
Burger King's too.
Nobody ever remembers this. They had like five. They had like five meals you could choose from, and it was like I just remember the popcorn shrimp was one of them. The cheeseburger was obviously one of them. I can't remember what the other ones were. Clearly a short-lived thing. It did not go over well. People, I guess, didn't want to go for a sit-down meal at the Burger King. Of all places.
You go in, you get your burgers, you sit down, you eat. You got that cheesy tin ashtray. You keep it real simple. So the unfortunate fallout of this for her was that she gained a stalker, and
that like ended up being like crippling.
It's a real.
She couldn't leave her house. It's a sad,
fucked up story. I believe he held her hostage for a little while. Like. It's a real sad story, and it caused her.
She was on Peaches Christ and Michael Varati's show Midnight Mass, and she talks about it. She goes into it quite a bit in that. It's a really terrible story.
Yeah, but like I only know like the broad details of it. I have no desire to really look into it because it's not my business, and that's really, really sad. But it was bad enough to cause her to sort of withdraw. She stayed working. But she did a lot of voice stuff like looping and ADR. And then eventually when the sort of autograph industry kind of roared to life, she kind of came back into the scene and started doing like, she sort of shows up in horror movies every now and then.
She ended up, someone like convinced her to go to Chiller one year. And she did, like, she was like, all right, I guess. And she was one of those people that like, didn't realize she had a following. It's kind of like Betty Page. Like when that guy found Betty Page, he was like, don't you understand? You're like an icon. She's like, who are you? What do you want? No, I live in the woods. Fuck off.
So, but like it brought her out. It kind of, like you said, found her audience. And I've never met her. She seems like one of those people who really gets it though.
She seems very like genuinely appreciative. She also is a painter.
Oh, yeah. I wondered if the art in the movie is hers because it's a detail that appears very quickly in this one and also in the sort of beginning of part 2. So yeah, it must be her. Also appearing is Betsy Palmer as Pamela Voorhees, who I met at one of these horror conventions, and she holds the record for the nicest celebrity I've ever met. She is the polar opposite of my encounter with Tom Savini. I could have spoken to her for hours. It was one of those deals where, like, when I used to go to these things, and I like to get DVDs signed, and before it became just way too expensive to do that sort of thing. But like, you're always in a line with a bunch of people behind you, and you're constantly conscious of like, I don't want to take up this person's, I don't want to monopolize this because there's people, but for some reason there was nobody there for Betsy Palmer.
And it's like weirdly transactional.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
You're kind of acutely aware of that.
In this case, she held us there for like, I swear to God, like 30 minutes, just talking, just chatting. And she was,
well, because this like made her career, because she didn't, I mean, people talk about her like she was some like, legendary star. She really
she was a minor leaguer in the 50s in terms of film, but like her home was really on stage in New York. And that doesn't really, like, if you're into stage and theater, then like you probably are aware of her in some way, but like,
but she is iconic because of this movie. And can you, I mean, so there were 2 other people they had offered it to before.
One of them was
Sally
Fields.
Was it? One of them was Shelley Winters.
Oh, no shit.
Can you imagine Shelley
Or
fucking
no, I
Winters
got that
in this
wrong.
role?
They wanted Sally Fields for Alice, and when they got in touch with her agent, they were like, we cannot afford that.
No, and Estelle Parsons she's like an Oscar winner.
Yeah. But like
I mean, Shelley Winters is an Oscar winner too, and she's also a lunatic.
Some of the things that I learned about this, about basically the development of the project, was that on top of everything else, and I mean, it probably just comes with being a businessman, Sean Cunningham was into like stunt marketing.
Oh yeah, this is a real fake it till you make it story.
Yeah, and so I think a lot of that was like they knew they were never going to get these big names, but they put the script out there to sort of get it circulating in Hollywood. Like before they even had a finished script, he took out like a full page ad for the movie in Variety, but also, I mean, mostly for hype, but also to sort of dip a toe in it to find out if there were any other movies called Friday the 13th. And surprise, there actually is. A year before this movie came out, there was a movie called Friday the 13th, The Orphan, which there was some litigation. It sounds like they settled out of court. I cannot find any details about it, but I suspect that somebody wrote a check because that movie now just goes by the title The Orphan.
And the only reason this is called Friday the 13th is because of Halloween.
Yeah.
Is that right?
Yes. Yeah. So the original title of the movie is A Long Night at Camp Blood, which is a fucking
worst title.
Stupid title. They called it Friday the 13th because of Halloween, but also ominous connotations. You know, it's stunt marketing. There's a lot to this movie that sort of feels like other movies. And so like that's just like a bit more of it. So Betsy took this because she needed a new car and it cost $10,000 and they were going to pay her $1,000 a day for 10 days. That was it. That's how she took the role.
Which is wild because it doesn't feel like she does 10 days of work in this movie.
No.
I mean, at the end, she earns her money, but.
Oh, yeah. Again, like what do I know about like film production? But like 10 days seems like a lot given for how much she's actually in the movie. Because most of the kill scenes are Savini.
And I'll tell you what, when you watch this in 4K, you can tell.
Yeah. And rounding out the cast, Kevin Bacon as Jack.
Never heard of him.
No.
He is yet another bit player in things.
No. He is
a movie you've never seen called Footloose.
Yeah. For a long time, it seems like he went out of his way to avoid ever having to acknowledge that he was in this movie. And
not anymore, though. He has a much better. Same thing with Tremors. He has a much better sense of humor now.
I was going to say, I'm told that he's a really nice guy and has a really good sense of humor about it. But like into the 90s, I would tell people, "Oh yeah, this is Kevin Bacon's in Friday the 13th," and they'd be like, "Shut the fuck up, that guy." No, you know. But yep, this was it. This was one of his first things.
Because what he did, like I think he did Diner before this.
Yeah,
and that's it.
Yep. But like also again,
sucks.
lots of commercials and and stage because it was all centered around New York.
And then right after this, he went on to do a fantastic television film called The Demon Murder Case with Cloris Leachman.
I don't know that one.
That is the one based on Ed and Lorraine Warren's
God, the devil
big fucking scam where they tried to convince everyone that the guy killed somebody because of the devil.
Yep.
Guess what? He didn't. Devil's not real, neither are demons. Sorry, Ed and Lorraine Warren.
Yep. So yeah, some notes. This movie was released on May 9th, 1980. It came out at the same time. I don't know if it was the exact same time, but it was in theaters simultaneously with The Empire Strikes Back. And this movie kind of marks probably my first conscious memory of sort of interacting with horror, because Dad took me to see The Empire Strikes Back.
I thought you were going to say he took you to see Friday the 13th.
No, but he took me to a movie theater.
I wouldn't be surprised if he did.
He has more sense than that.
Yeah, I mean, we had a sort of a weirdly dichotomous home in which one of our parents thought that these were all evil and needed to be put in the trash, literally, and the other one thought movies were great and you should just watch all of them.
Yeah. Which is wild because Mom represents like my first meaningful interaction with horror, since all the fucking horror titles on our bookshelves were hers, including The Exorcist and the H.P. Lovecraft stuff that we had, which is crazy because like when I was like, hey, I'd like to see Friday the 13th, and she was like, absolutely not, it'll make you a serial killer. It's pretty wild. But yeah, I was in a movie theater basically going to see the Star Wars movie, and that poster was up, and you're seeing it in your head right now even as I speak to you, and it's a very evocative poster, and when you're like 4 years old,
and yet it tells you nothing at the same time.
Yeah, but like when you're 4 years old, it's like enough to really send your mind spinning, and like I was obsessed with that poster in a really, really weird way. Like I thought about it a lot because it was the same, like you just said, like it doesn't give you any idea what it's about, but like it's fucking scary to look at, when you're that little. And so it really stuck with me, and eventually, I caught up with it, obviously, and it was not what I was expecting it to be. So it was it was made for $500,000, and it pulled down $60 million in its initial theatrical run, and it cemented cheap slasher movies as the dominant paradigm of the 1980s. Also, it's notable for being the first indie movie to secure major studio distribution.
It is also still very controversial in terms of who owns what. That box set was like a huge legal undertaking to put out, apparently.
Oh Jesus, it's got to
because it's owned by like 3 different groups, I think.
Yeah, right. Because eventually it passes out. I think Dimension gets it. New Line gets it. Yeah,
New Line bought it, and then Dimension, I think.
Yeah, did you know Dimension?
I think Miramax put out the shitty last one, the remake.
Yeah. Did you know Dimension's owned by Disney? Always has been.
I did not know this. Miramax, and Miramax owns Dimension.
I did not know this, or rather, I never really connected the dots. But like, that's fucking
Disney owns everything.
Disney owns everything. But like, even back then, like that was crazy to me. That like, fucking Disney was the company responsible for some of the most important horror movies of the 1990s, which is just fucking nuts to me. So all the camp scenes were shot on location at a camp called Camp Nobi Bosco.
Sounds like a native word.
No, it's I'm sure. I'm sure that Bosco stands for like Boy Scouts, because like the fucking Boy Scouts think they're.
Oh, it is. Yes, it is, because that's still who owns it. When they do those like big viewings at the camp, they donate like half of the money. That was how they ended up getting the deal. Like they were like, they were allowed to show the movie at Crystal Lake Camp, whatever the fuck it's called, because they were willing to donate like half of the money to the Boy Scouts. Which, if you're going to give money to a group, I don't know if that's the group to be giving it to.
Not them. No, but like, because like the fucking Boy Scouts think they're
maybe a less handsy group.
Just saying. They're real cute, like with names and shit like that. Like fucking the Weebelows stands for like We'll Be Loyal Scouts or some shit. So like they're always I know. Anyways, it's located in Hardwick, New Jersey, which looks like it might be a couple hours northwest of Manhattan. It's right on the border of Pennsylvania. You can go there.
Also, if anyone wants to know why there are so many movies that take place at summer camps, it's not just because of they're aping this movie. It's because it is a single location that you can stay at while you're filming, and it has the infrastructure for food, for accommodations, for pretty much everything. And if you do it off season, it's really fucking cheap. That's why there are so many goddamn camp horror movies.
I was talking to some people about this the other day, because I don't remember which. Oh, I think we were talking about Sleepaway Camp, and it was the fact that all of these movies are shot while these camps are off season, and so everything is supposed to look like it's in the summer, but
except
whenever
it's October.
It's always shot in like October or November, and it's really, really fucking cold then. Like even on the West Coast, it gets pretty cold at night, in the winter months. So like,
which was it? It was like Mad Men, or it was Sleepaway Camp. It's one of them where they talk about how someone was literally going around gluing leaves onto trees.
Oh yeah, that was Sleepaway Camp. No, that was Mad Men. I think Sleepaway Camp is the one where they painted them.
Yeah.
But also, like, I mean, whenever you watch these, particularly some of the Friday the 13th sequels, like you can see people's breath, you can see them freezing to death as they shoot these scenes in the camp. It's crazy.
This is one of those movies that does not benefit from 4K or from any kind of restoration like that.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, so like you said, this place actually continues to operate as a Boy Scout camp. And I couldn't imagine going to that place when this movie was all the rage. Because like it must have been fucking awesome. But you can get tours of the location if you're into that sort of thing. I happen to be that kind of a dork, but I've looked up prices for those tours, and I'll tell you what, no thanks. It's a little expensive. So special effects are all by Tom Savini,
who got this based entirely on his work on Dawn of the Dead.
Dawn of the Dead, yeah. So Cunningham's big drive for this movie was to make Halloween, but where Halloween is a violent movie, but it's mostly bloodless. He wanted to up the ante. Obviously, this was supposed to.
Yeah, he was like, "What if we make our version of Halloween, except we don't give a shit about the story, the dialogue, or the characters." I'm
gonna give this movie a pass on the characters because at a certain point while I was watching it, I'm like, you know what? I do kind of like all of these people, even now.
Oh, I fucking hate them.
All of them. I think they're not bad. They're not bad.
Actually, no. I think Adrienne King. I think she's good.
I think she's lovely.
All the fucking tertiary characters are the ones that I love.
I think. like Tierney.
Oh, don't worry. We'll get there.
Yeah.
We'll get to them.
Yeah. But anyways, like the reason for this is because all of the stuff that had been produced up to this point, for the most part, in terms of horror movies, specifically these little indie ones, is you're kind of confined to making, because also special effects makeup was not really a thing that could be done on the cheap. And so a lot of the special effects are retractable knives and the fucking, hidden blood packs with the, the bleeding knife gag and stuff like that. So they would imply the violence and then show you the aftermath. And what they wanted to do with this one was show it happening as it happened. And so Savini was the only guy in the game.
Yeah, there's a reason why he is an icon. He is really fucking good.
He's the first guy who did it. And I think he eventually gets outshined by his proteges. But up until, the Greg Nicotero comes into the picture, like he was really the only game in town.
And Greg Nicotero doesn't come on until what? Day of the Dead?
Day of the Dead.
85, 86?
Yeah. So, nobody else was doing it. And so and that's the thing is this script has a lot of really sort of exciting stunt kills in it. And then, let's see, lastly, can't go anywhere without mentioning the music. The film's music is a central piece of why this all works. It's by a composer named Harry Manfredini, and it is awesome.
Interestingly, it's not a coincidence that so many of these people worked in soap operas. I think they all kind of knew each other. Like Victor Miller wrote for soap operas.
He was, and he lavished the opportunity to write a movie where he gets to kill everybody.
And you can tell there are points in this movie where you can feel the soap opera.
Yeah,
like in the music, in the dialogue, in the direction, you can really feel it. Yeah. And I think it's awesome, but.
Yeah, and he's like a lot of the guys who were operating like Fast and Cheap at this time, and they lifted all of their themes from like other stuff, and it's always the same it's always the same one. It's always Psycho.
Oh yeah, no, and fucking Bernard Herrmann is just like slathered all over this.
Yeah, but also
this whole 90% of Harry Manfredini's score, I would say, spends its time, as Strongbad would say, way up high on the tiny strings. It is staccato notes. Pretty much all the way to the end.
The string sweeps, the stabby shit, but also there's a lot of John Williams as Jaws in this one.
And all John Williams was ever really doing was ripping off Bernard Herrmann too. So.
Yep, but
still does.
Regardless of those origins, no suite of musical themes communicates running through the forest in terror quite like this one. And the obvious lasting leitmotif in this is the iconic Kiki Ki Ma 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 thing that they do, which is
pulled from a line later.
Yeah, so it's ki as in kill, not cha, not a ch sound. Get that through your fucking skulls.
Ooh, yikes.
I know, it drives me goddamn crazy that people are still
because it is killer, mommy.
Killer and ma as in mommy. God damn it.
Yeah, well.
Yeah, what are you gonna do? So the film.
This is what happens when you piss off a dork, I guess.
Yeah, I know.
They freak out on their podcast.
Yep, that's what I do. It's my fucking podcast. I'll freak out.
That's a grim line.
Yeah. So the film opens on Camp Crystal Lake in 1958, where campers.
Jesus, 45 minutes later, we're finally talking about the fucking movie.
Yep. Yep. We are concise, if anything. So campers and counselors sing happily around a fire, while in first-person perspective, we get a tour of the camp by night set to the tents.
This is a real Christian camp moment.
It really is. They're singing like, what's that fucking song, Michael?
Hang down your head, Tom Dooley.
Yep.
And then there's like a couple other Christian hymns they toss in there. Yeah, it's a lot of real happy white kids.
Yeah, yeah. But also, like, this is essentially, this is them just doing Halloween.
Yep. Also Jaws. That moment around the fucking fire by the camp.
Oh my God, you're right.
That's Jaws.
Yep.
100%.
It starts right off there. But like, yeah,
it's all real wholesome until Barry and Claudette sneak off to fuck.
Yeah, and they, a pair of counselors break off to a cabin somewhere where they are going to do it. And they're all making out and shit. When more than
I will point out that there is a shot. There's a moment while the killer is creeping around the camp that you actually see children sleeping in beds.
Yes.
And it is a rare appearance of children in this series that takes place primarily at a children's camp.
Yeah, yeah. I had never really noticed that, and I think maybe it's just the 4K-ness of it, because it's a really dark scene in terms of lighting, and it's like, oh, there's people in these beds, but like when you can see it in the UHD presentation, it's like, oh shit, those are children.
Because you don't actually get kids in this series until the 7th one.
Yep. And so, yeah, we get more that POV stuff. And so what Manfredini said when they were making this is that he does this on purpose throughout the entire movie. There is only music present when the killer is doing their thing, right? Because there are scenes early, like when Brenda is at the archery range and Ned does the thing with the arrow. Like it's set up to kind of give you the impression that she's going to be killed by the killer, but there's no music in this scene. It's only when the killer is doing their thing. And so, the killer interrupts these two, stabs the boy, chases the girl around before we get.
Meanwhile, but before that happens, they're like making out and rolling around and giggling, and I believe he says it's not made of stone. No, I think we all know what he's talking about, but I don't know what preceded that.
Yeah. Maybe it was an improvised line. Yep. And so, they do the whole thing. They do they do that slow-mo zoom thing. That's really, I don't know what it is. It seems like it's unique to this series because like Friday the 13th does it a bunch. Also, the trailer for Sleepaway Camp does it like a bunch as well. Like I bet they were stealing all their shit from Friday the 13th, anyways. But like, this is the beginning of Halloween. Mm-hmm. POV from the killer. We got some sexy times, and then, but like in Halloween, obviously we go down to the street level and they pull the mask off and it's a little boy. In this one, they're saving the killer reveal for the end. And like, I'll dance around it on this just for the hell of it. But everybody
I already blew it at the beginning.
Yeah, everybody knows who the fucking killer is anyways. There's no mystery left in this one.
It's impossible to talk about this movie without saying who the killer is.
Yeah. But like the kind of like, I mean, there wasn't that many like body count movies like this at the time. And the killer is always a dude. And so, like, the fact that they kind of, like, pull that rug out from under you at the end and really kind of subvert your expectations was interesting for the time, and it still kind of remains that way.
It's still a fun reveal.
I love it because the way that we'll get there, but when she shows up, she's a lot of fun. Like you for a moment, you're like, oh shit! Thankfully, here comes help. But
this movie makes a lot of use of it's you.
Yeah. Actually, they don't overdo it quite as much as they do.
I could have used more.
In Sleepaway Camp, they do it like every 5 minutes. But so this is them just gleefully stealing from Halloween. So now we cut to the present day, and it's a rural backwater township. What is a fucking township, anyways?
I believe it is something, an unincorporated area within a town or something like that.
Okay, so like bigger than a village, smaller than a town.
I believe so. Yeah.
Everything's a township in New Jersey. And Annie is backpacking her way to Camp Crystal Lake. She pops.
Was she the one who got cast because she looked like a camp counselor?
Maybe.
One of them got wasn't even hadn't even auditioned yet, and they were like, "Nope, you've got the look, you're in."
If it's anybody, it's definitely her.
Because she looks 100% like a fucking camp counselor.
Yeah. Yep. She pops into a diner and drops the name Camp Crystal Lake, which makes the whole place freeze.
I love this moment because the woman behind the counter turns down the radio.
Yeah.
I tell you what, if she had a record player, she would have just dragged the needle right across the record.
Real slow, like.
Yeah.
Sure. But this is the thing. It makes me wonder because I was thinking about this as I've always just kind of taken it for granted that Crystal Lake has this reputation, but I never really thought about it. To the best of our knowledge, there is one murder.
Well, no, see, here's what I'm saying is I don't understand why, because they say later on why they're in the car or whatever. Yeah. He's like, well, there was the boy that drowned, and then there were those 2 murders, and then the water was. I'm like, this shit all just sounds like kind of par for the course.
Yeah, like there was much fires and the water was bad, and it's like that's a death curse.
I mean, this does not equate to death curse for me.
No,
this feels like they've been working on the apartment above mine. I swear to God, I've endured all of those things.
Yeah, like this is because everybody is like, why are you going there? It's like, first of all, those murders happened like 30 years ago. And like, I don't understand it. It's such a weird thing. Like if they backed it up and been like, well, like, somebody gets killed every year. And then eventually they just stop trying to open that camp. That would be
these are real slack-jawed yokels, though.
They really are.
These are the slackiest jawed yokels.
Yep. One of those is Erwin Keyes in a real early role. And,
which one?
The busboy.
I didn't even notice him.
Yep. Real young. I guess the year before he played. He was a cop in the Warriors. So yeah, eventually he shows up in basically everything Rob Zombie was doing.
Look, Rob Zombie's running out of people he can put in movies.
We're going to get there with Rob Zombie. No, so Andy catches a ride out to Crystal Lake with a truck driver named Enos.
I would not. If I was a young lady, I would not be getting in a car with Enos. He looks like he is a man who takes liberties.
You know what? If this
movie... And he does when he helps her into the car. Just puts fucking both hands on her ass, pushes her up into the thing. It's like, I don't know if is that in the script or is this just like 70s guy behavior?
A little of both, probably. But the thing is if this movie were made today, he would have had his hands all over. It would have been it would have been grotesque in the extreme.
Yeah, he doesn't leer at her.
Yeah, like in this one, it's just he's a little handsy, and then he kind of gives her the side eye. But like
but before they get into the truck, though, you get a warning.
Oh, that's right.
You get a dire warning from your harbinger.
Yeah. So yeah, before they're accosted by Crazy Ralph, who informs her that she's going to die because it has a death curse.
Here's what I think about Crazy Ralph. I feel like he is a guy who knew he has a limited amount of time on the screen and he is going to make the most of it. He just puts his whole self into this performance.
Oh yeah, and that's the thing.
Fucking shoulders rolling.
He is one of the details of this movie that everybody remembers and everybody loves because like they loved him so much that they rolled him out in part 2. Yep. But
I will say it's kind of hard to. He tries to make a dramatic exit. It's kind of hard to make a dramatic exit on a rickety bicycle with a basket on the front, but he does his best.
Yep, and it works, man. Everybody loves Crazy Ralph. So the thing about Ralph that always fucking bothers me is he is set up throughout the movie to be like the guy that your mind is supposed to jump to when you're like, oh, who's killing all these people? But
not him.
It's a detail that doesn't really settle with me because we see him. This is a man who can barely ride a fucking bike, and we like in the next in 10 minutes.
No, he is as fucking as sassy as he pleases. He's not out there killing people.
No, and like in one of the in 10 minutes we're gonna see Andy get killed by somebody driving a Jeep, and I do not believe for a second that this man has the presence of mind to operate a moving vehicle.
No.
That's Crazy Ralph. So as they're driving, like Enos lays out all the bad shit that's happened that we just kind of went through, and I'm still not.
These two have weird chemistry though. Like the way that they are playing it is like they kind of have this like Edith and Archie Bunker is what I'm getting. Like they're just kind of sassing each other back and forth. He's like, "You kids," and she's like, "You people." I'm not afraid of ghosts, at least. It's like you just met him 5 minutes ago. Why are you sassing him?
They're friendly, man.
It doesn't feel friendly though. It feels kind of antagonistic.
They are a little adversarial, but like the energy is paternal, is the way that I describe it.
Yeah, I get that. I get it.
So yeah, he drops her off, and now we cut to three more counselors driving up to Crystal Lake. That's Jack, played by the Baconator, his girlfriend Marcy, and their friend Ned, and it's all
fucking sucks.
and it's all set to a shredding banjo solo, which it seems like every fucking movie of the era, the soundtrack features ripping banjo action.
Oh, there's a almost a direct ripoff in My Bloody Valentine.
Yeah, and also, I mean, like, I feel like, unless I'm remembering it wrong, I seem to remember like a kick-ass banjo track in Dawn of the Dead as well.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's when they're when like the hunting party's going out.
Yeah. So yeah,
and I always wonder, do you think they asked Goblin to do that? And they were like, I'm sorry, what is a banjo?
It's like a mandolin. No, that's
bigger and dumber.
Yeah, it's got to be like library shit. But like whenever you get these soundtracks, they always come with the fucking library tracks. It drives me crazy.
But it also, if you go back to Last House on the Left, it's got that real whack, like yada da 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 yada da da.
Yeah.
Like this real kind of Tin Pan Alley weird country bullshit.
Yep. Yeah. Well, that seems like that was David Hess's deal.
Oh, it was.
Yeah. So yeah, we're now we eventually get to Camp Crystal Lake, and the first thing we see is shirtless creep Steve Christie.
Now I'm gonna be a little bit crude for a moment, everybody. Steve Christie wins the queerest person in this movie.
No, let me tell you. You know what it is? It's the kerchief.
Okay. Yeah. Well. All right. I mean.
He's got the little cut-off denim shorts.
Well, he has got on cut-off booty shorts. He has got on some fucking work boots with socks pulled up to his shins. He's got a fucking handkerchief, no shirt, handkerchief around his neck. He may as well take the fucking handkerchief off and tuck it into his back pocket. And that, everybody, is a joke for all the gay men over 40 out there.
Oh, man, we got a niche audience.
You're welcome.
But yeah, there's a real like Tom of Finland quality to this character.
Oh, God, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
And we're supposed to believe that this is Alice's, I'm guessing, ex-boyfriend.
It's okay. So that's a question that I have is
because he's a real fucking creep.
He's a super
she seems
creep.
Not interested.
That's the thing is I cannot tell if they have any relationship whatsoever, or because the way that she is set up is she's leaving. And her whole thing, and he seems like disappointed by this, but the way that he like speaks to her and the way that he touches her is very much in an unwanted advance kind of way.
Oh, like, but it implies familiarity.
I guess my whole thing, the way that I interpret this is she's leaving because she cannot stand to be her neither's guy who's always touching her hair and like stroking her face and shit.
Yeah, I mean, I have a note that says, "Ew, Steve, fuck off, you're a creep."
Yeah. I don't know. No, he has this air of menace about him all the way up to his death scene. And he's a really severe dude for reasons never really made fully clear. But yeah,
he does have a bizarre intensity that's kind of off-putting, and it never feels appropriate for the scene ever.
No, because everybody else is having fun. Like
he's in the diner later with the greatest character in the entire movie, and he still comes off like a fucking serial killer. Is he supposed to be the red herring?
Well, no, because like right after that, he gets fucking murdered.
Yeah, but then again, because he does disappear.
Maybe because I know, because they do the same thing in fucking Madman when is his name Max, the kind of head counselor, when he kind of vanishes and there's a whole period
the one who waxes philosophical nonstop.
Yeah, and there's a whole period where you're supposed to be like, oh shit, is he the killer? So maybe because like there are a bunch of just.
I mean, I feel like Steve is a killer, but he's not the killer.
Yeah, there's bodies already on Crystal Lake.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But yeah, like, and so there's a lot of, this is them essentially setting up all the characters. There's Brenda, who goes and sets up the archery range, and Ned surprises her by almost shooting her with an arrow.
Jesus fucking Christ, Ned. You can't be shooting arrows at people.
I would like to think that this was some kind of elaborate special effect that kept the actress safe during the shot.
No.
But I bet that on a budget of $500,000, the effect consisted of her standing perilously close to where the arrow was supposed to hit, and Tom Savini shooting an arrow from off camera, because that's
And
what
let's be
fucking
honest,
did
Tom
this.
Savini probably does not know how to fire an arrow.
I don't know. He did all the gun shit in Maniac,
I mean, if anybody wants to find out, there is an exhaustive history of these movies called, what is it, Camp Crystal Lake Memories?
Camp Crystal Lake Memories.
And you can get it in book form. You can watch the documentary. It is extremely long. It is kind of interesting sometimes. It also drags on for fucking ever. And you will be disappointed by everybody.
It covers all of the movies. But yeah. So yeah, this is our first red herring.
Yeah, and Ned is apparently he is the prototype kind of jokester in horror movies, like that practical joker. Like that wasn't really a thing until this.
Yeah. So he's the guy that kind of Jamie Kennedy eventually comes to embody in Scream.
I mean, they're tedious, they're awful. You can't wait for them to die. I know people like Jamie Kennedy in Scream. I do not.
Not me either.
Because he is a thing of the past that needs to stay in the past.
Yeah. So now we cut back to Annie, who's still hoofing it, and she catches a ride with a Jeep, and then the Jeep flies, and whoever's driving this thing is flooring it down these country roads. The Jeep flies.
I find this conversation sad and weird.
It is weird because it is entirely one-sided, and Annie seems very, very friendly and like in a mood to just chat it up with a person who, for the what we can tell, is not talking back.
Yeah, listen, this is my fear about hitchhiking. It's not the getting murdered part. It's the awkward small talk part. Honestly, I would rather be murdered than have to make small talk with someone. I don't even answer my door if someone knocks on it. The fucking building could be on fire, and I'd be like, "Go away, no one's home."
No. The worst thing in the world is a chatty barber. Nothing worse than like I'm stuck in this chair and you want to know what I do for work.
But Annie is going for it, and she is. I think that she says, I guess I always wanted to work with children, and I don't want to minimize the importance of camp counselors in the lives of children, but is she not just going to serve food to them? She's not teaching remedial English.
She's
class.
a cook.
Like,
you know what? This is her dream. How dare you?
Yeah, she does. She says, when you've had a dream as long as I have, and I thought, your dream has always been to serve food at a summer camp? Again, I don't want to judge anybody, but I mean, aim higher, Annie. Well, you're not going to have a chance to aim higher, but if you did, you should have.
No, because this is the thing is the Jeep speeds up. It flies past the road to Crystal Lake.
Yep.
And then this is when the tense killer music kind of comes up.
And man, when you say tense killer music, I think what you mean is soap opera music, because this is a real dun 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 kind of moment.
And so we know from this that Annie's time on this planet is running short, and then she leaps from the movie,
hurls herself out of the car.
Which is the right thing to do, because this lady ain't stopping for nobody.
Now, listen, everybody, if you want to know what you're supposed to do in these situations, you are supposed to throw yourself out the car. But just like anything, if you have to fall a great distance or from a moving vehicle, you have to land on the softest part of your body. And Annie doesn't do that.
Nope, she goes right for her feet, hurts her ankle, and lurches into the forest while she's being chased by the killer in POV. She's eventually found and her throat is cut.
Now, what I will say is, so this movie suffers a lot sometimes in 4K because you can see it's all of these scenes, it's Tom Savini's hands. It's always Tom Savini doing the killing.
Well, again, this is like in Sleepaway Camp where they're like, well, we can't do Angela's hands, so we're going to use Ricky's hands instead.
But they do a decent job in this moment, because he's kind of right up on her.
Yeah.
But the camera moves in certain ways so as to obscure that it is him. Like you can tell it's a larger person, but you don't get man from it.
Right. To its credit, this is a fly-by-night production, but they really do use like movie magic to like obscure who the killer is.
Yeah, this movie is shot very well.
Like if you've never like assume you've never seen this movie before, you didn't know who the killer is at the end, that's probably like legitimately surprising. Also, your expectations are it's a guy, because up to this point they've all been guys.
Well, and also, let's be honest. Who kills women?
It's always
Men.
guys.
Men kill women.
It's always
That's
fucking
who.
guys. Yep. So back at camp, the counselors are frolicking in the actual lake while the killer watches from the forest.
Oh, real fun. Hey, you know what's a real funny joke?
Fake drowning?
You're hanging out with your friends, and then you pretend that you're drowning. And then when they save you from your pretend drowning, you sexually assault the woman who's giving you mouth to mouth. Oh, it's an old classic. What a hoot.
I will say this, though. As he starts up the ruse, they do the shot of the all the camp counselors on the shore, and Kevin Bacon is standing up in it. And all you see is his fucking hog in the shot. Like,
oh yeah, no. Kevin Bacon is wearing the Speedo to end all Speedos.
Yep. So,
I feel like they didn't have a costume budget so much, but I feel like if they did, he would have been like, yeah, but do you have anything smaller?
Yeah, the water really fills it out. I really need these to be tight. Yeah.
Because this is, if you're ladies, men, if you're interested in Kevin Bacon, this is your movie.
Yep.
Because you're not just you're going to get some Kevin Bacon ass a little bit later.
Yep. So now we cut to Alice's bunk, and there's a snake in there. And in runs Bill with Chekhov's machete.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Now,
Bill,
look, I generally am opposed to killing animals for anything. For
no, chop the fucking snakes in half.
But I'm cool with this because this is, in case people don't know, they actually do kill an actual snake, but I'm fine with it. And you know who's doing the actual killing of the snake?
It's like
That's Bing Crosby's
Bing Crosby's son. Yeah, one of the ones who did not accuse him of child abuse.
just one.
Just one of them. Because it turns out he's got something like 6 sons or something like that, and then like there's also some daughters involved. Like this guy reproduced.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, he seems like he was kind of a piece of shit.
I mean they all were, but what do we? This isn't the Bing Crosby podcast. It could be though.
Well, I mean, I have is it a wig before that, but then after that is the Bing Crosby podcast. It's a couple episodes long. That's about it.
Yeah. So for some reason, a cop rides up on a motorcycle.
And this cop sucks. But you know what? So does Ned.
Ned is doing some just racist shit.
Yeah, he's coming out real hot being racist with a big headdress on.
Yeah, like a big
war bonnet.
War bonnet. And but like there's no setup.
Hey, just in case anyone's interested, there are no tribes that on the East Coast that would have worn that. So there's no reason that should have been there other than racism.
Oh yeah. I mean, I'm sure that that there is like some Boy Scout shit that was just laying around that he's like, oh, I got an idea for this thing. Because having actually attended Boy Scout camps, like I'm sure things are a little different now. But like in the
I don't think they are.
In the 1980s, the 1980s, like the whole Indian thing was they were real loose with it. If you get my drift.
Yeah, it's like, hey, what's funnier than pretending that you're drowning and then sexually assaulting someone? Racism.
Yeah, the thing is about this is that it really sticks out to me when I watch it now is there's no setup, there's no context. He's just doing it apparently by himself for fun.
There's a part later where it's similar, but this is also where you can see by the third one they kind of cross the threshold and they're like, oh, this personality fucking sucks.
Yeah.
With Shelley in the third one, where you're like, God, Shelley, I can't wait for you to die.
Yeah. Again, and the thing is with part 2, the Ned in that one is almost identical to this guy down to the way he looks,
and he lives. Yeah. He's one of the only ones who lives.
Yep, unfortunately.
Incidentally, he is also in my favorite episode of The X-Files.
No shit.
He's in Clyde Bruckner's Final Repose.
Oh, no shit, yeah.
Yeah, he's the killer.
I did not know this.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. Yeah, my favorite X-Files is also a Darren Morgan episode.
Because he wrote all the best ones.
The fucking best ones is like 4 of them.
No disrespect to Kim Manners.
No. It's you guys, X-Files guys, you're the best. Just Darren Morgan, you're just better.
Yeah, a little bit.
It's Jose Chung's From Outer Space, by the way.
Okay, that's a good solid runner-up for me.
Yeah. So this cop.
Also, because you get isn't the narrator is Charles Nelson Riley?
Yes, it is. Yep.
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. So this cop is basically Joe Friday, and he is convinced that they're all high on grass, hash, the weed. Dig it?
Yeah, they are fucking out of their mind on goofballs, all of them.
Yep.
And he is not here. He's not here for any weirdness, you know?
No, that's right. Yeah, this was the golden age of the Quaalude. So
man.
yeah, this is and it's basically another bit to set up Ralph as the possible killer because he's out there because he's like, yeah, I heard Ralph was out here, and just keep an eye out for him. It turns out,
And funny thing is, he is out there.
he is out there
He
actually.
is, for some reason, just fucking hanging out in their pantry,
Yep.
waiting for someone to open the door.
So he can tell them that they're all doomed to see.
It's got a death curse. I feel like I shout "It's got a death curse" at least once a week. Just apropos of nothing.
I know.
Sometimes.
I'm gonna have it fucking tattooed on my hand just so I can just show it to people. We find out that the next scene that we said Ralph is out there, he's creeping around to terrorize kids about the death curse, and then after
this is the next scene. The next scene is Ned again, and he's alone, but he's kind of being really performative. Like he's walking on a log, and he's like, got his arms out, he's singing to himself.
Right, because right before this is where we learn about Chekhov's emergency generator.
Right. And he's making fun of him because the guy's like, well, don't worry, I know how to work the generator. He's like, oh, I know how to work the generator. I'm like, okay, that's not a thing you mock somebody for. That's like a real practical thing to know. Like,
I know. Like, I don't know how to work a generator.
He is already more valuable than you.
Yeah. I mean, if you need a laugh, man, Ned's there.
Ah, God damn it. Am I Ned? Am I Ned in this world?
I assure you.
Well, what do you bring to the world? Well, I write podcasts and I make jokes about things that most people don't understand.
Yep. No, you're not Ned. I assure you this. So yeah, now we're out there. We're out wandering around among the cabins. Ned spots somebody out where nobody should be, and he goes to investigate. And there's something about this scene that there's nothing overtly scary about it, but the way that you don't really see the person, but you catch the movement and you recognize that it's somebody who's trying to avoid detection. There's a little creep. There's a little creep in there.
And they will do that again a couple times, and every single time it is really effective. I think it is really, really great. It's probably one of the best things about this movie because this is a movie that is so unsubtle in every way, and yet every now and then there's a moment where you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. But and that's one of them. I love it because it's just, you don't see it. It's a person who is not supposed to be there, which is a thing that I kind of talk about sometimes in movies that actually scare me. It's the uncanny. It's people behaving strangely. It's shit where there shouldn't be shit that kind of tends to get under my skin.
It's the fucking moment in the closet in Black Christmas. Everybody, Black Christmas is coming up in December. It's basically going to be me, that Jonah Hill meme where he's waving his hands around being all excited. It's going to be me doing that for 3 hours.
Yeah. But yeah, that's why I like Black Christmas gets to me. Like there's so many moments in that movie where there is somebody who you never see who is
It's the uncanny valley. It's something is just a little bit off, but not so much that you'd notice. You just sort of catch it.
God, I cannot wait to fucking talk about those phone calls.
We missed Ralph's second exit from the film again, where he runs out of that cabin. It's a real exit stage left moment. Like he just fucking shimmies out the door.
Yep.
It really is fantastic.
Yeah. So he follows this this person into the cabin, and this is kind of the last we see of him.
Yeah, this is a series wrap on Ned.
Yep. And then Marcy and Jack, meanwhile, they sneak out of the cabins as the storm rolls in. They're going to sneak off for a little sexy time. Everybody else, however, is in another cabin, about to make the worst board game ever even worse by playing Strip Monopoly.
Man, listen, Monopoly takes days to play. I remember when we lived, the first house we lived in Northampton, we would play Monopoly, and that shit would go on for hours. And as a kid, I loved it, and it was probably just because we're all hanging out in the basement, playing this game that goes on forever. If you were to be like, "Hey, do you want to play Monopoly?" I'd be like, "Get the fuck away from me!"
I know.
No.
I know. We had no Ticket to Ride these days. These were pre-Ticket to Ride.
I have to take an edible to watch TV at night. I can't sit around and play Monopoly with you.
Yep.
And also, Strip Monopoly, that sounds even worse.
Oh, God, I know. Because there's all these time where you're just cold and naked and nobody's doing nothing.
Nobody's doing anything.
No. So Jack and Marcy are having sex. And then the camera.
Though I will say at one point, one of them goes, "Why don't you see if Marcy left any of that grass?" And I thought,
she
God,
says,
I love the term grass.
I know. Wait, what did she says? I won't pass go without a glow.
I love a good euphemism, and grass I think might be one of my
grass
favorites.
is one of my favorites. Yeah, it's one that I wish would come back. But people are too fucking up in arms about cannabis these days.
Yeah.
No. Anyways, yeah, the camera pans up and we learn of Ned's horrific demise as thrown.
Now listen, I gotta be honest. Maybe it's the 4K of it all, but if I walked into a room and stepped up to a bunk, because they are on a bunk bed. Jack and Marcy. Is that his name?
Jack and Marcy.
So they're on a bunk bed. They're in the lower bunk. If you walked up, you would notice a dead body on the upper bunk. It is right at eye level.
It's not as though he was concealed or anything. As we see him, he's just laying there. So yeah. I mean, I know. That part of his notwithstanding, like, there it is. We gotta kind of roll with it.
Yeah, there's a lot of suspension of disbelief in this movie.
Yep.
From here on out.
Yep. Everybody's now fully partying down. A lot of beer going around. They're smoking.
Yeah, this is very 80s partying.
Yep, smoking grass.
Yeah, this is very it's like chopping mall party. It's just like this is what you think a party is? I mean, I guess it kind of is what a party is, but
yeah. I mean, there's not much else to do at this summer camp, so they're making do. So now out in Jack and Marcy's cabin, Marcy's off using the restroom. Jack is alone.
Oh wait! Before she leaves to go to the bathroom. She turns this. So this is post-coital.
Yep.
And she turns to him and says, "You're so fine."
I know. She also says, so they're kind of like big spoon, little spoon in this scene, and she says, "You're laying on my bladder," and I'm like, "No, he's not. He's fucking behind you."
Oh, she might be very confused.
Yeah. She's just reading the lines. I'll give her a break. But yeah, she goes off to use the bathroom. Jack's alone. Blood drips on him from above, but before he can even do anything about it, an arm.
Now I'm going to stop you right here because I'm going to say this is a controversial moment. There is a scene in Bay of Blood that is very, very similar to this, and I find it hard to believe that either Victor Miller or Sean Cunningham saw Bay of Blood.
Okay, no, you're actually ahead of yourself. The Bay of Blood scene is where they get staked together. That happens in part 2.
Really?
Yeah.
I thought the arrow thing is in Bay of Blood.
No, it's that kill scene was taken directly from Bay of Blood, but it's in Friday 2.
Well, Bay of Blood's a hell of a movie.
It is a hell of a movie. So he gets, so the arm reaches around, pulls him down, and he gets an arrow like rammed through his neck from below. It's for my money, it's the best kill scene in the movie.
Yeah,
it's so good. It is
the most iconic kill scene in the movie.
Yeah.
It is, I will say it is probably top 5 kills in the whole series. It is not the number 1. We all know what the number 1 is.
I'm interested. What's your number 1?
It's the sleeping bag.
It's the sleeping bag. All right. Because you surprised me sometimes, and I would say close second is Demon in the outhouse, but it's the sleeping bag. Yeah. So, now Marcy is out in the bathroom. The killer comes in behind her. She thinks she hears somebody moving around, but she dismisses it. And I do believe that this is probably the first occurrence of the, hey, come on out. I know it's you.
I think this fucking scene is awesome.
Yeah. Because she dismisses it, and it's not like she gets killed. They kind of drag this one out a little bit.
But it is real tense from the moment she's like fucking around with the water. And she does that kind of like, she does what I think is a great Hepburn impression.
It is. It's Katharine Hepburn from The Rainmaker.
Yeah. And then, but there's just a lot of like weird, they really drag it out. And I think it is effectively tense in a movie that is not always, well, I've already said it is unsubtle in every way. I think she gets killed, it looks great. Like, I think the application looks great. The makeup's great. It all is fantastic.
Yep. Lizzie, you'll always be plain. I bet you anything that's like, like she's got an impression and she's got
Yeah, they're like, just
this,
do a bit,
and then
just do something.
and they're like, give us a monologue, and she always does Katharine Hepburn in The Rainmaker. So again, she hears somebody moving around and she goes back to check in the showers and is rewarded for her curiosity with an axe to the face.
And it looks, I mean, again, when I was watching this, I thought, this is why Tom Savini was the best. Like,
Yeah.
it looks fucking great.
Yep. It's a hell of a kill. And nowadays it's kind of hard to know which one I'm watching, because I always sort of assume that I'm just watching the unrated version. But for a long, long time, the only version of this movie that you ever got was the R-rated version.
Right.
And I don't remember which parts were trimmed. I guarantee it was just like seconds here and there.
In the first one, it's the second one that was super heavily edited. So I have the box set, and they both have the unrated, but this one I think they just cut little pieces here and there. It's part 2 that has like big chunks taken out.
Yeah. So yeah, back at the Monopoly game, Brenda splits off, declaring that her cabin windows are left open, which is a cardinal foul in a slasher movie. And after a bit of bullshit establishing that Steve has been away being a creep elsewhere in New Jersey, Brenda returns to the restroom. This is the scene that you were talking about with the diner.
You're not going to skip across the diner, are you?
No. Do the diner, because he's there. It's late. It's raining, and the lady is
Steve's a local, and Sandy is happy to see Steve. She's working the diner. It's the late shift. Now, look, is Sandy a contender for Is It a Wig? Absolutely. She is fantastic.
Yep.
Now,
hey, what do I owe you, Sandy? A night on the town, honey.
Yeah, she is. If like this woman, her name is Sally Ann Golden. She died like a year or two after this movie came out. She's only been in like a handful of things, one of which is Alice, Sweet Alice.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah. And if someone was like, hey, you're casting a diner scene in a horror movie, who's behind the counter? Go. My immediate answer, Sally Ann Golden.
Yep.
She's fantastic. Now, as Steve gets up, about to pay his bill, gives her the tip, and honestly, the tip is less than $1, so let's not get too excited, Sandy. But Steve goes out the door and she yells, "Drive carefully!" And then she looks longingly, forlornly in his direction, and they just kind of linger on her face. I swear to God, Sandy's the best part of this fucking movie. And then I have to say, is Steve driving the same Jeep as the killer? Because I think that is also part of the red herring.
Right. I don't think so.
I'm pretty sure it's the same car.
Because we see, I mean,
it's the same make and model.
I'm going to say it's probably the same like prop car, because we see as he's driving back, the Jeep breaks down, and then Mrs. Voorhees shows up in another Jeep that I assume
I'm pretty sure it's the same. I think it's the same car
because she's driving the Jeep earlier in the movie.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's
yeah, that would make sense.
Yeah.
So I think it's just a weird continuity thing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like they were like, we only have one other vehicle.
Let's just
honestly, shoot this one at night.
Honestly, it's probably that. Like they just wanted to reuse a car.
Well, now Brenda has decided to retire to bed, and I thought, for a bunch of sexy teens, Brenda's rocking some real serious Little House on the Prairie.
Oh yeah,
pajamas.
that's like that thing is like, it is a nightgown that is neck to ankles.
Yeah.
Opaque as the night is black.
Yeah. It is some real homespun shit.
It's very, very funny because just in the scene prior, like everybody's hanging out in their underwear basically, and she is gonna be as chaste as possible. But yeah, she returns to the restroom where Marcy was murdered in order to clean up, and so now we're gonna do this whole thing where they kind of cut back and forth between Brenda and Steve on his way back, because like his car breaks down, he gets picked up by the cops, she goes to clean up, she gets into bed, she does some reading, and they cut back and forth between these two in a way that I think it really manages the economy of time, and also it ratchets up the tension a little bit, because like much as you're like,
her scene is another one where you're like, this is very good, it is very tense, and the movement back and forth between these two not set pieces, but just it's kind of two moments is really good.
Because the
quick.
setup is it's who's gonna get it next. Because you know somebody's gonna get it, and for all of the your talk of like there's no like there's just not subtle. It isn't, but when it's trying to
Well, that's what I'm saying is like when it is so fucking good.
And this is one of those. This is definitely one of those.
There is a scene in this moment with her in the bathroom that I think is the best scene in the entire movie.
Yeah. So this movie is obviously aping all of Halloween's moves, but the victim pool in Friday is pretty much twice that of Halloween. So they have to do a couple of things, and it's really the first half of the movie. Like we are about at the 50% mark at this point. The first half of the movie is basically people fixing a camp and having fun, and I think that they do a really good job of sort of like establishing that. And I like a lot of these characters. Like I like Brenda, I like Marcy and Jack, like everybody except Ned to me. And
I mean, they're fine. They're just kind of forgettable.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
I couldn't tell you who's who except for Kevin Bacon.
Yeah, and I have to look up their names and shit. Like I'm constantly forgetting who the sort of main boy is. I think his name is Bill.
Yeah. Whereas in Halloween, I can tell you exactly everyone's name, and I can fucking give you an entire biographical rundown of them.
Yeah, but the back half
I'm obsessed with all of them.
The back half of this movie is where all the murders happen. It has to juggle all of these people until it's time to kill them, and it does it fairly well. But yeah, so like we said, they're bouncing back and forth between these. You know somebody's about to get off, but you don't know who. Spoiler.
I will say though, I think it probably has a lot to do with the fact that Victor Miller was primarily a soap opera writer.
Yeah.
So you learn how to
you balance a shitload of characters. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, like honestly, like if you have to kill off like way more people than the movie that came before you. You get a guy who's like managing a show that has like 24 main characters and
you gotta get real fucking creative.
Yeah. Anyway, spoiler alert, Brenda's the next one to get killed. And so this part, I love this because her death is you don't see it, but the lead up to it is fucking crazy because she's lured out into the rain by somebody calling for help.
But first, before that even happens, you see she sort of looks over. She hears that. I think it might be the first time she hears something, but she looks over at the showers, and they're basically just the showers that have the pull curtain across them. And she looks, and you see a hand just sort of creep a little bit around. It's not a full arm or anything. It's just a person's hand kind of touch the outside of it and then pull back into it.
Yeah.
And that scene is very, very creepy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's weird because I would say at best, the direction in this film is competent.
Yeah.
That moment is fucking brilliant.
It's outstanding. And it's something that I think like it's a subtle thing that just if you play your fucking cards right and you're subtle when you need to be subtle, you can be actually scary. Because I'll tell you what, there's not a lot of horror movies that scare me anymore.
No, I can't think of a single movie.
I can't remember the last time.
Ever scared me.
I cannot remember the last time. There've been some, but I cannot remember the last time that I was like chilled to the fucking bone and carried it with me. And there are a couple of moments in here that like I kind of make me go like, ooh, and that's one of them.
Mm-hmm.
So things are starting to get out of control. Brenda is lured to the archery range and like unseen, hands in the Giallo style, like turn on the lights. The last we ever see of her is essentially like trying to see past the like bank of fucking lights in front of her.
And then we cut back to the police car where there is a conversation that goes something like this. Old Ralph was out our way today. His wife was a nervous wreck until we got him home. I'm sorry. His wife?
What? I had never noticed this detail until a very recent viewing
What is their home life like?
What must it be like with this
guy?
Does
he do laundry?
No.
Who makes dinner?
He's a soothsayer. She does all the work, and he just predicts who's going to die next.
God, what a job.
His wife?
Yeah. His wife, Crazy Ralph's wife.
Yeah. Bill and right before this, Bill and Alice finally like go and check on Brenda, because Alice thinks that she heard a scream, and they find a bloody axe in her bed. Then everybody else's bunks are empty, and they decide to call for help. And having broken into the office, they find that the telephone's dead and the truck won't start. And so, yeah, this is Steve is picked up by the cop. The cop has to respond to an accident.
Yeah, because he gets a call, and it's a head-on collision. They need the jaws of life, and he says, all right, I'll be there in 15 minutes. And I thought, what is this, Detroit?
You know what it is?
15 minutes. They're going to be dead by the time you
know
get
what it
there.
is?
Take your fucking time.
There's it's country roads, because like whenever they ask like, hey, where's Camp Crystal Lake, they're like, it's like 20 miles from here. You see another sign that's like Camp Crystal Lake 12 miles. So like getting around here, like these are like you're there where it turns out where this movie takes place, or was shot rather, and it's sort of like, I guess you can kind of say takes place there as well. They're right on the fucking edge of like Pennsylvania coal country. So like everything is really, really rural out here. And so just getting around is a pain in the ass. So when he says it'll take 15 minutes, I fucking believe it.
But, all right. Well, I mean, I don't want to sound all ACAB, but 15 minutes in a crisis.
I don't know, get the let out, man. So and so Steve is dropped off here. It's no longer raining, I think, is the thing. And
yeah,
so
he says it's letting up, so you can walk. I have to,
Yeah, so he's on his way back into camp, and he's stopped by somebody with a flashlight, and he regards them as if he knows them.
Yep. Oh, it's you.
Yep. And then this person kills him, and nothing of value was lost.
No, it's fine. He sucks a lot.
So with only 2 left to kill, the killer shuts down the generator. She is really making tracks around this camp. Like, this lady is everywhere.
Yeah, no, this is where suspension of disbelief really kicks in, because there's a lot of things that, she's not an old woman. She is an older woman.
Yeah, she's like definitely like firmly middle-aged. But yeah, she plunges the camp into darkness. And of course, Bill goes to check on it.
Meanwhile,
by
Alice
himself.
cozies up on an absolutely filthy couch.
Yeah. Oh man. You know what? Having been to these places, I could smell that couch.
Well, I'll tell you what. I'm looking at that and I thought that looks like the couch in the office at Bull Moose Music. You didn't want to sit on it, let alone snuggle up on it. And for those of you who don't know, Bull Moose Music is a record store that we both worked at. I worked there for a very long time. It had this disgusting couch that everybody had sex on this thing. And it's like anytime someone would sit on it, I'd be like, don't let me get you a chair.
Yeah, I know it smelled crazy in there. It's
yeah. And this couch is just fucking gross, and that's the first thing I thought when I looked at it.
Yep. So now after a time, Alice goes to look for him, and she finds his dead body all jacked up at the generator. He's got like arrows stuck in him and shit, and his throat's
And I mean,
cut.
this is that suspension of disbelief. She's an older woman. Did she hoist him up and pin him to the door with arrows?
I know. But now Alice turns and she does. Now this is like, you can tell that even as they're just aping the moves from Halloween, they kind of studied it, and I think they had a better understanding of it than a lot of the other movies that sort of.
And I think they also want to have a little more fun with it.
Yeah, because
Halloween is a pretty serious movie.
Yeah, but she does all sorts of like smart shit in order to kind of like assure her safety in here. Like gathers up weapons. She fucking does this thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's a little too. I think she's a little too composed. I mean, she freaks out when she finds Bill's body pinned to the door with arrows.
Yep.
And it's not like you found someone who has died. You found someone who was very brutally killed, and you have every reason to believe that everyone else is also dead.
Yep.
And she freaks out for a minute, but then she's just like, all right, Alice, get your shit together.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's you against the fucking world now.
But then the killer throws Brenda's jacked up body through the window.
Well, and I will tell you what, I actually really like this moment because throwing bodies through the window becomes kind of a hallmark of this series.
Yeah.
And she doesn't throw Brenda through the window so much as she kind of dumps Brenda's body through the window. Like she kind of like took a bit of a running start and like firemen kind of hurled her
hurled her through the window.
Yeah, like she just sort of tumbles through. She's not chucked through like a fucking bay window.
Yeah, and yeah, because by part 4, like everybody's either jumping through windows or being thrown through windows, down to the fucking dog. Like it's crazy how much of a
And that's
a
fine
trope that
because
becomes.
Kane Hodder is a gigantic man who
Yeah.
could probably throw someone through a window.
Yep.
I'm gonna say, what's her face?
Betsy Palmer.
Yeah, she seems like at best maybe she could dump a body through a window.
Yeah. So yeah,
And she does.
and just as all seems lost, a Jeep drives in, and Alice runs out thinking that it's Steve, but it's not.
Well, I'll tell you, Alice starts to run out, and this moment really resonated with me. I'm a person who gets frustrated very easily. And Alice goes to run outside, and her jacket gets caught on the stove. And I was like, I would lose my shit if that happened. Like, Alice, maybe she's real composed. I would be like, fuck it, I'm done. I'm just going to kill myself in here.
Yeah, but anyways, it turns out that it's Mrs. Voorhees, who's a friend of the Christies,
Yep.
or so she says. And there's this moment where you're supposed to be like, "Oh, thank God!" There's help, but
because I will say, Pamela Voorhees really commits to the bit where she's just like, "What, a killer? You must show me where. This is terrible."
Yeah, and so she freaks out, shows her all the bodies. Mrs. Voorhees starts telling her a story instead.
This scene is so fucking great.
About a boy who drowned in the lake some years ago.
It's like she was like, I know that this wasn't written for a drag queen, but someday there will be drag queens who will want to do this. Because this is such a hammy performance. The counselors weren't paying attention. They were making love.
And they were having filthy sex. And then she gets even weirder. And it turns out she's the killer, which is real wild.
This is in a turn of real fucking soap opera writing. She like literally turns her head and sort of stares off into the distance and flashes back to a memory that she wasn't there to see, so she couldn't possibly have a memory of it, and yet there it is playing out in her head.
Well, let's say this, that because she's so fucking deranged, she has just constructed this memory.
But it is a real, like, she really, like, she looks off into the distance, and you can tell it's like that, like, and then flashback moment. It's fantastic.
Yep, to Jason, all mutated and shit, drowning.
You gotta give it up to soap opera people, man. They fucking kill it every time.
They do it, and they do it well.
Like, do you need an actor? Do you need someone to paint your house? Do you need someone to fix your car? Soap opera people can do it. They can do everything.
And they'll do it with a flourish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So now they fight. This I swear to God, this
fight goes on forever.
It's like 20 minutes long.
And it is brutal.
And it's brutal, yeah. And I don't know, maybe it's just because I was taking notes and shit, but like it seemed so much longer because any other.
There's a point where I'm gonna start looking at my phone. I mean, I've seen this movie so many fucking times. I know it beat for beat, but like it really drags on. And Pamela Voorhees, man, she takes a beating in this scene.
Yeah,
apparently though, she was really hitting.
I was gonna say,
Adrian King.
when they rehearsed this, they fight, and so she's supposed to like slap her around a bit, and apparently this is what they did on the stage. She's like, when you do this on the stage, you actually hit a person. I don't think that's true.
I don't think you do.
I don't know if that's true.
I actually know how you choreograph fights like that, and that is not, you don't actually hit each other. But she was like, just hit me.
Yeah, and of course Adrian King is like freaking out, like what is happening? And she started crying and shit. And Cunningham had to take her side and be like, no, like this is the movies. We'll do it in post. Like just make it look like you're doing it.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll have Tom Savini jump in there when the time is right.
Yeah. So yeah, and like this is the thing that they run along the way. She finds all of the bodies of her friends in the big tableau that like Halloween setup.
It's Halloween, yeah.
And
it's much less effective it's not that effective in Halloween either, but it's much less effective in this.
No, but literally everybody fucking does it from here on out.
Yep.
So
this movie is this sets the template for everything. As much as people are like, well, Halloween was the first. Like, no, this was the first. Halloween is a good movie.
Yeah. Yeah. Halloween was the one everybody wanted to do, but this is the one that everybody was like, oh shit. Like that's how you make $1 million, for like
because you
nothing.
literally get like at the beginning right after this, year after year, you get multiple knockoffs.
Oh yeah, dude. The Burning,
and some of them are great.
Madman,
And are we going
Sleepaway
to talk
Camp.
about them? We're going to talk about them.
Fuck yeah, we are.
Happy Birthday to Me? Fuck yeah, it's coming.
Yeah. So Mrs. Voorhees is now like fully in the throes of like madness. She's talking to herself in the voice of Jason, which I love.
Indeed, it is over the top. It is perfect.
Yeah, because it's not just her; she's doing it in like a little boy's voice. It's so great, and that's where the musical motif comes from. That's where it's taken from. But it's not her. It was actually Manfredini like doing it into a it was all him, but like he took it from this scene because he loved it. Apparently, there is another movie that did something like that he was like, "Ooh, I'm stealing it," but the specifics are escaping me right now.
Look, this man has done over 200 film scores. He has stolen more than just this.
He's so fucking good. But I'm going to say this, like honestly, this is his number one innovation. Even
this is what he's known for.
Yeah, everybody. But like, here's the thing. I mean, if we're being honest, everybody's fucking stealing from everybody. It doesn't. Honestly,
I mean, are the House and House 2 scores that he did good? I think so. Are they memorable? No.
Nah. Yep. So they fight a bit more.
Alice locks herself in the same. She locks herself in Crazy Ralph's pantry.
Yep. And so Mrs. Voorhees like breaks through with the machete and she gets hit by Alice's like frying pan. And this is the oh, you think the shape is dead scene.
Yeah. Well, she hits her with a frying pan and then she kicks her in the crotch.
You gotta.
And man, that is rough. That's rough to see in a movie. Because you know it hurts.
Yep.
Man or woman, it hurts.
Oh, you can sympathize with it so easily. And so again, but like of course she comes back for one more scare, and there's a lot of cat and mouse here, and a sort of protracted ending until the two of them come face to face on the beach, and Alice ends up with Chekhov's machete, and she chops Mrs. Voorhees' head off.
In what is probably one of the greatest horror moments of all time.
Oh, for sure.
The look on her face, that slow-mo look as she turns and her wide eyes, and she really leans in.
Yeah, of course. And again, like what we were talking about the poster earlier, you're seeing this in your head right now as we talk about it. It's
I almost went with for the social media promos for this. I almost went with that image because it's so fucking great.
It's so great. But yeah, also this head, and this is the thing is the head, like the body sort of falls away and her hands are up. They always
and her hands go up, and I thought, well, what large hairy hands you have, Mrs. Voorhees.
Yep. Savini's hands right there. So that body shows up again the very same year in Maniac.
Wow.
Yep. At the end when
a penny saved is a penny earned. That's what Tom Savini always said.
Oh shit, yeah. Like all those props he uses in Maniac show up in the Prowler. Like, yeah, it's crazy. He's a man of economy. And so Alice then pushes a canoe out into the lake and gets into it. And then
we get a lame, unnecessary ending.
Yep.
Thanks to Brian De Palma.
Yep. So apparently Savini, they were like, this ending, we need a little something. And Savini was like, hey, I just saw Carrie. And so there you go.
Seriously, even the fucking score is Pino Donaggio knockoff.
It is. Oh my God. Cause it's the dee 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 dee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like it's.
And look, I am a huge Pino Donaggio fan. I can spot it every fucking time.
Yep. So, she's the only survivor and everything is all right. It would seem, but suddenly a fucked up mutant Jason leaps up out of the lake and pulls her in.
I'll tell you what, I'm watching this and I'm thinking, you know what the shittiest part of all of this is? After all that's happened, Alice still has to row back to shore.
What a pain in the ass.
God.
So we cut to the hospital and she wakes up screaming and there was no boy. It was just her. We fade to a final shot of the lake.
He says, we never found another boy. She says, then he's still there.
He's still
waiting
there.
For another sequel or 10.
Yep.
And Fiend.
Yep. Roll credits.
Whew.
Friday the 13th, man.
I think that's the first heavy hitter that we've done, like the first big one.
Yeah. Like, because this is definitely not really our forte. Like the main like well-known titles is something that I think we kind of consciously avoid. Like we haven't done a Nightmare on Elm Street, or
Which is not to say I don't like. I fucking love this series. I love all of them.
yeah. I mean, of all of the slasher franchises, this is definitely my favorite.
Halloween is my favorite, but this is a close second.
Halloween as a movie is one of my favorite. I fucking hate the sequels.
I do not hate the sequels. I think they're fun. I think that this series, this franchise, learned very quickly what to do and how to have fun with it.
Yeah.
It falls apart after the 8th one. Like I even think the 8th one is fucking great.
Yeah. Like I have, like we did our rankings a ways back, and it sort of sounds like when we get towards those last ones, they're the obvious like last entries on my list for me. But even in that case, like that's not really a bad thing. Like
no, because they knew how to have fun. They knew what to do with it. I think you can go two directions with it. You can either be Halloween and be a serious film that is very good, or you can go the other direction and have fun. But you that's it. Those are your options.
Oh yeah, like these all get more and more ridiculous as it goes on, and I love the way that the further sequels kind of roll out, because part 2 comes out a year after this, and I believe it's set like a year after this, but then part 3 chronologically picks up like the day after part 2 ends.
Yes.
And then I believe part 4 is also maybe not immediately after.
It's not immediate, but it's close.
But it's very close. And then they kind of chop it off there. And then
5 is about 15 years later or something.
Something, yeah, because Tommy Jarvis is like a fucking adult in that one.
Yeah, it's like 10 years later.
Yep. But yeah, but I do like the way that they're just like, all right, well, I guess if we're just going to keep making these movies,
because
we're just going to be stupid with it.
To be a good horror movie, they're so few and far between, and that's for a reason, because you got to have a lot of fucking talent to pull it off. John Carpenter has a lot of fucking talent. That's why it worked. Sean Cunningham does not.
Yeah. Because like honestly, this is probably the only real movie of note that he made.
I mean, Deep Star 6 is fucking garbage.
Yeah, I watched it just recently because that was one of those ones that came out at a time when it coincided with the release of, I believe, Leviathan, which was another.
And there's
monster.
Another one too. Leviathan, that, and there's one more that I can't remember what it's called. What's the one that has Ed Harris in it or something? Because Peter Weller is in Leviathan, right?
Yeah. Ed Harris is in the Cameron one, but that was a couple of years later, and that does not really compare at all.
Sucks.
But I know that there is another like monster deep underwater. It's basically The Thing. Deep Star 6 was the same thing. Leviathan's the same thing. But yeah, it's I don't know. Moving into the late 80s, horror sort of starts to creep towards its natural ending, and we kind of go towards a kind of horror movie desert of the 90s. But
you gotta know where your limits are, and I feel like Friday the 13th, out of all of them, Friday the 13th really understood what its limits were. They were like, look, this is what we're good at. We're gonna do this until we can't do it anymore. Like Nightmare on Elm Street just drives it into the fucking ground until you hate it.
I would say that, yeah, Nightmare on Elm Street definitely, like, once you get to, I actually really stopped giving a fuck about that one after part 3.
Yeah, because they get progressively worse. 4 is okay.
4 is okay.
Then they get terrible until New Nightmare.
Yeah. There's like, just think of some of the others, because it is really, because like until about, I don't say like the late 80s, the 1980s major slasher game is Freddy and Jason.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, big deal. I mean, it definitely won't be the last of the sort of heavy hitters that we do, but man,
and just a couple of
weeks.
Just down the road a piece.
we got a good one coming up, but yeah, I don't know what else to say. It's so much fucking fun. Personally, I think the movies get better when Jason comes along.
Yeah.
But this is a great movie. I love it to death.
Yeah.
You know,
my favorite is the third one, and I know it's a hot take, but I fucking love that one.
No, my favorite is part 2 for sure. It's got the best final girl of all of them.
Yep.
Amy Steele is the shit. I love Jenny.
And I believe Amy Steele, isn't she also in Happy Birthday to Me?
No, she's in April Fool's Day.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
That one has a big twist.
The twist of the year.
But don't worry, there's a twist.
Yeah. So yeah, there it is, Friday the 13th. So we'll see you in a few days with another one when we visit Rob Zombie.
Yeah.
I know, Jesus fucking Christ. Yep. So yeah.